Mistakes to avoid on a final table. Nancy says you won your first live tournament yesterday thanks to PokerCoaching.com. Good. I'm glad to hear it. We have a whole lot of amazing content at PokerCoaching.com to help you crush tournaments, cash games, and whatever else you're trying to get into. We have a lot of fun content coming out very soon on Poker Coaching. I'm very excited for that. We've been working on a new program for a while that will hopefully be coming out sometime soon. You know how programs go. And I am excited for the future. The future is fun. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. I'm heading out to the World Series of Poker for my second stint tomorrow. I'll be there until the very end. I'm looking forward to it. My first stint, I had one cash live, one cash online, solid top 3 or 4% of the field in both of them, and then I lost. And that's about as good as you can hope for. Well, to be fair, you could run hot and win the tournament. But I'm going to go out there and try to win all the poker tournaments. I feel good about my game. Everything's been going well. We won the Poker Go Cup recently. Been doing pretty good in online tournaments as well. So can't complain. Just need to run a little bit hotter. All right. Today, we're going to be discussing 3 mistakes to avoid. The first is ignoring ICM, ignoring the payout implications. Assuming you care about winning money and not trophies, you must adjust to account for the payout structure and the stack configuration. The configuration of the stacks in play. I'll give you some examples in just a second. When I initially wrote this PowerPoint, I guess I was feeling aggressive. I said, and not trinkets. So funny. Maybe somebody was trying to level me. Not trinkets. Trinkets. Someone was trying to level me on Twitter the other day, I think. They're like, but you got to try to win the bracelet. I'm playing to win. I actually posted something along the lines of, here are some spots you should fold pocket aces. I'll tell them to you really quickly. You should fold pocket aces on the bubble of a satellite when you're pretty much guaranteed a seat. Imagine the chip leader goes all in for 40 big blinds. You have 20 big blinds with pocket aces. The average stack is 6 big blinds. You're basically, I mean, it depends on how many people are remaining, but you're something like 95% or 90% to get a seat, maybe more, if you fold, because you have 3 times average, right? But if you call, you're only 80% to win the seat, because you're going to lose 20% of the time, give or take. So would you rather win a seat 80% of the time or 90-something% of the time? I personally prefer 90-something% of the time. Another example, say you're on the bubble of a World Series of Poker tournament. You get it all in, you lose a big hand, you're down to 0.1 big blinds. You're on the button, playing with a big blind ante. Say you're on the stone bubble, 100 people get in the money, you're down to 101 players, you have 0.1 big blinds. Everyone folds to you on the button, you have pocket aces. You should take your aces and put them right in the muck. Why? Because if you quadruple up to 0.4 big blinds, when average stack is 20, you're just not winning this poker tournament. You're going to have a difficult time. Now, look, every once in a while, you'll run it up. I get it. I remember one time I lost to a guy who won this tournament. He had one anti-chip when we were down to 18 players. And he won. I had half the chips when we were down to 10 players. I doubled up everyone multiple times, and I lost. It happens. It happens. But with 0.1 big blinds, you're probably not winning the tournament. And at this point, on the bubble, a lot of your equity is going to come from getting the 2 buy-in minimum cash, which is what they're doing at the World Series this year. Even if it's 1.5 buy-ins, you should still just fold the pocket aces, because would you rather get back, I don't even know, probably 1.4 buy-ins on average, if 1.5 is the minimum cash, or would you rather, not get that 80% of the time, which means you're getting like 1.1 back? Would you rather get 1.1 or 1.5? Personally, I prefer 1.5, and most people would too. So these are some spots to fold the pocket aces. Anyway, assuming you care about winning money, which at the end of the day is what most professional poker players care about, you must account for the payout structure and the stack configuration. And failure to do so will cost you lots of equity. Your friend just folded ace-king on the bubble, 14 big blinds deep. You told him it was a super big mistake. So whenever you have 14 big blinds, funny enough, you can actually win the tournament, right? And so a lot of your equity is going to come from taking the top few spots in the tournament. Whereas whenever you have 0.1 big blind, you are not going to win the tournament, right? So you will find that very often the middle stacks are the ones that end up busting on the bubble, not the shortest stacks. Because the middle stacks, if they double, then they have a good chance to actually win. Kill says, you're going through the Cash Game Masterclass. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Any advice for revision other than the quizzes. I'm not sure what you mean by revision. Definitely go through all the quizzes in that course, as well as all the cash game quizzes we have on the site. Is 10 cent, 25 cent too hard to beat online? Absolutely not. I've been playing on a site recently. We'll be talking about that more in the near future. And their small stakes games are super soft. I've been recording myself playing, and it's been up only for me. That's lucky. Or maybe skill. Who knows? All right, let's take a look at this situation. 15 big blinds, 5-handed with a 1 big blind ante, when folded to in the small blind. Here is how you should play with no payout implications whatsoever. The hands in green, limp. The hands in red, go all in. Okay? Notice, 15 big blinds with no payout implications, you get to play 80-something% of hands, 85% of hands. Okay? You get to play almost everything. You should be limping a ton, shoving the medium strength stuff. Okay, now focus on this middle chart here. Ignore this one on this side. Let's just look at the middle chart. Here we have the stack configurations at a final table with a standard-ish payout structure, nothing overly top-heavy or overly flat. Under the gun has 20 big blinds. Cutoff has 30 big blinds. Button has 60 big blinds. You have 15 big blinds in the small blind. Big blind has 44. Notice here you are the clear short stack. Despite that, you should not play as if there are no payout implications, because there are, right? The 20 big blind stack is going to go broke some portion of the time. By the way, these charts are available on PokerCoaching.com. Make sure you check those out. So here we have a strategy where we have you raising small to 2.7 big blinds total, or maybe it's 2.2 total. Yeah, 2.2 total, I think. Then we have an all-in, then we have a call. I realize we did not build in small raises into this chart because I don't think it adds that much value to your strategy, but at the final table, you probably should. That said, all these hands in light red would be limps for the most part if you did not have the small raise range. If you did not want to have the small raise range, you'd be limping these best hands and these junky hands. Anyway, let's take a look at what we're doing. We're raising small with our nuts that can easily call off and some junkers. We're shoving the medium strength stuff, but a whole lot of the medium strength stuff. And then we're limping some good hands and some mostly suited hands and connected type hands. Okay? Notice, though, we're folding 36% of the time. So with payout implications, we're folding 36% of the time, even when we are the short stack. But with no payout implications, we're folding only 15% of the time. It's a very different strategy, right? And this is what you should do to account for the payout implications. What if instead you're not the clear short stack? Well, now you have to be even tighter. So notice here we have the hijack player / under the gun with only 10 big blinds, cut off with 20, button with 30, you with 15, big blind with 50. Now you're folding half of the time in the small blind, just open folding. 9-8, 8-7, 7-6, 7-5 suited, 5-4 suited, all just hit the muck. Notice we're also jamming way more often. Well, 33%, same jam frequency, but notice we're jamming way more than the no payout implication scenario. Also, we're raising small more, we're not limping very often. And that's because we don't really want to get involved, right? We'd rather the opponent just fold. So these are all situations that your strategy changes a lot based on the stack configuration. And we're not even discussing how to adjust to various payout structures, right? If you're playing a very top-heavy tournament, you're going to gamble more. If you're playing a very flat tournament where you're incentivized to just move up one spot, then you're going to play even more cautious, right? The main point here, though, is that the strategy is very different in these scenarios. A lot of people play these scenarios exactly the same. How about you get aces and you have 1.5 big blinds for a ticket? One player had one ante. You should probably fold. I mean, I don't know the exact scenario, right? You need to define your specific scenario. It's very important to not just say one player had 0.1 and I had 1.5. What do the other people have? Do the other people have 30? Right? Do the other people have 4? Because if they have 4, well, you're way more likely to get in the money compared to if they have 30, right? So it's not just as easy as, what do I do in this exact spot? Here are 2 data points. I mean, if I had to guess, it's probably fold, right? Because assuming the other players are going to take the blinds first, they have to win the small blind, or the big blind and the small blind back to back, right? So if they have to win the big blind and the small blind back to back before you have to win a hand, odds are they're going to go broke, right? Also, if there's a big blind ante compared to a traditional 0.1 big blind ante per person, that changes things a lot too, right? So anyway, all that's very important. Actually, if they have 0.1 big blinds and they win one hand, they have enough for the big blind. Oh, no, they don't. They don't have enough for the big blind. So they have to win the big blind and the ante and the big blind, and then they can fold the small blind. So they only have to win one hand before you have to win. So maybe you are supposed to play. I don't know. It depends. What do you do with as the chip leader at the final table if they are raising every hand? What do you do if the chip leader is raising every hand? Well, to be fair, they should raise every hand. I'm not going to go through the poker coaching charts, so you can go and take a look at those. But quite often, like right here on the button, this 60 big blind player probably screwed up by folding. They should be raising a large chunk of the time. And what do you do? Well, the answer is you jam or fold if you have the 15 big blind stack here. Same thing here. If the button's raising a lot, you jam or fold. But you still have to be kind of tight because you're incentivized to make money, not to try to win a trinket. Speaking of trinkets, a big mistake you can make is ignoring your opponent's tendencies. Many players adjust poorly or not at all to the payout implications. Some drastically overadjust and think the only goal is to win. Some play as if there's no payouts at all. It's first place or nothing. Someone on Twitter, probably a troll, was saying it's either first or nothing. Then it made me think, like, how much would you lose in tournaments if you played perfectly only with the idea that you care about winning? First place only, second pays nothing in your brain. How much would you lose? And I'm like, maybe 30%, maybe 40%. I don't know. Some people will not care about the payouts at all. And they will be jamming very wide. And they'll be playing very aggressively. Or they'll have a middle stack and they'll just play aggressively against the chip leader because they are trying to win the bracelet. And, well, that's a mistake for them. But if you play as if they do think they have payout implications, but they're playing as if they don't, you're going to be making big mistakes because you can't push them around because they don't care about getting in the money. This is super duper important, especially when you're playing games where people actually care very much about the prestige. For example, World Series of Poker final tables. Some people really want to make the final table. And so you can push them around on the bubble of the final table. So when there's 10 or 11 left, they'll be super duper tight. But once they get to the final table, they've done it. They've made the final table in their head. And now they just care about trying to win the tournament. Because they already made the final table, that's on their resume. No one cares about your poker resume if you have a final table. So they got their resume thing, and now they're going to try to win the bracelet. But they're squandering money because they are not playing anywhere near adequately. For example, in the previous spot, they may still play exactly this strategy, as if there are no payout implications. Or maybe they should be using this strategy here because they're not the clear short stack, but they're actually using more like this strategy and taking on more risk by playing more hands because they think they're supposed to try to win. It's hard to know what your particular opponents are going to be doing, but like if you see a middle stack playing every pot, well, they're obviously not playing as they quote unquote should according to payout implications. So what should that do for you? Imagine it folds to you in the small blind, and let's say you're supposed to play this strategy right here, right? Imagine you're supposed to do this. Let's just pretend like we're exactly in this spot. This is what the GTO strategy looks like. If the big blind is going to call super duper wide, what should you do? Well, you should stop shoving so much, right? You should shove more often with value hands, but less often with the marginal stuff, like 8-6, 9-7, 8-7, 10-9, Jack-9, Jack-10, Queen-10, Queen-9. These hands all go way down in value when you're going to get called very frequently. Because you don't want to get called. You care about the money, but they don't, right? So what are they doing wrong? They're calling too wide. What should you do? You should shove more value hands, and as you see, we do have plenty of them up here. And you should shove fewer bluffs. Now, the question becomes, what should you do with the medium strength hands like King 6 suited, 10-7 suited, 8-6 suited, Jack 9 offsuit? Depends on how they're going to play. If you limp and they're going to shove almost every time, well, then you probably don't even get to play the hand. You probably just have to put it right in the muck. However, if you can limp and they'll just check, because all they want to do is see the flop, they don't really care how they go about seeing it, well, then you can limp, perhaps even wider, right? It depends on your opponent's strategy, and this is what I'm trying to tell you all. You have to figure out what your opponents do incorrectly. Where can you find the ranges for spots to raise and call and 3-bet preflop? At PokerCoaching.com, click on the GTO charts. We also have it in the Poker Coaching app. Look for the GTO preflop charts on the left-hand side of PokerCoaching.com. We have loads and loads and loads of charts. Some of them are free for everyone, but if you want all of them, you have to be a Poker Coaching Premium member. ICM matters. Well, Natty, ICM matters, but you should not strictly follow the ICM strategy if your opponents are not. Because if your opponents are not playing ICM and you are, what's going to end up happening is they are going to end up calling far wider and perhaps shoving far wider or limping far wider by playing this strategy here than they quote unquote should, right? Like imagine your opponent's using this strategy here because they think there are no payout implications. This is what they're supposed to do with no payout implications, 15 big blinds deep. This, by the way, is the play that will result in them winning the tournament more often than playing these strategies, right? So imagine they do limp all this, but you think they're playing more like the middle range here. So you think they're limping something kind of decent, right? Well, if you think they are limping these medium strength but decent hands, but they're actually limping all sorts of trash, your strategy that you use is going to be really, really, really different against them, right? And so that's very, very, very important to recognize. You have to try to get in your opponent's heads and figure out what they are thinking. So some players will play as if there are no payouts at all. They're just trying to win. Others, though, will play too tightly or really want to take a specific place, usually to pay off a bill or get some arbitrary score like 100K or 10K or whatever it is, right? I'll give you an example of this. It was a beautiful one. Whenever I won this tournament, where is it? Can you see it? I won that trophy back there. I'll just pull off the ball. Look at this heavy, heavy globe. This thing weighs like 5 pounds. Look at this. It is a globe for the Foxwoods World Poker something another. What did they call it? The World Poker Finals. When I won that tournament, they interviewed the players before the final table, as they do for World Poker Tour tournaments. And they weren't particularly private. And I heard one of the guys at the table, get interviewed and say, as clear as he possibly could, yeah, I really need to take 4th place so that I can pay off my house. Good to know. Apparently he owed 200-something K on his house, and 4th place was 200-something K money. And you know what that player did at the final table? He played super duper 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 tightly until we got down to 4 players. And then, you know what he did as soon as we got down to 4 players? He blasted off. So, I somehow managed to play the spot perfectly. I ran him over when we were down to 6 and 5 players. And then, when we got down to 4 players, I don't remember the exact spot, but I think I raised and called it off with ace 10 offsuit or something. And Mike Sexton, the commentator, rest in peace, said something like, I can't believe Jonathan just called off the all-in against the tightest player at the table with only ace 10. And to be fair, it'd be like a normal GTO call, but not against this guy who hasn't played a pot, right? But I knew this guy's going to blast off. Or at least I thought he was going to blast off, right? I had that information. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm lucky that he had whatever bluff he had. But he had I don't even know what he had, Jack 9 or something. Not a good hand. Certainly not a tight player hand, right? So I had this information that this player was going to play in this manner, right? He really wanted to take 4th. And then once he took 4th, I predicted, correctly probably in this instance, again, you never really know, but I predicted that he was going to play far looser. And sure enough, he did, and I busted him, and I went on to win the tournament. I had another spot like that, actually, where one of my friends on the rail, when we were down to 9 players, heard a guy at the table talking to his friend, and he was saying, I'm just going to play really tightly till I make the TV final table when we were down to 6. So I ran that player over. I also had Phil Ivey to my direct left at that final 9. And I called up one of my friends who played a lot with Phil Ivey. He said, yeah, he's going to probably 3-bet you every single time you open because he thinks people want to make the final table on TV. And I didn't really care that much about this. So I raised Phil Ivey 3-bet. I ripped it all in. And he folded. We did that 4 times. Literally, here I raise, he 3-bet, I rip it in, he folds 4 times, back to back to back to back to back, over the course of 2 hours. Not back to back, but every single time I opened, he 3-bet me. And then he stopped 3-betting me. But I picked up 6 or 8 or 10 big blinds, whatever it was, every single time that happened, and that gave me a big stack going to the final table, right? So knowing that Phil Ivey has this idea in his head that people are going to drastically overfold to his 3-bets on the TV final table bubble allowed me to drastically counter-adjust and rip it in wide. Now, certainly, he could have just had aces, and I would have called, and he would have called, I would have been out, right? But if you think he's 3-betting far too often and not going to call the shove because it's not trying to torch money, right? I should be shoving very wide. So anyway, you always want to consider your opponent's tendencies. Sometimes your opponents will adjust by being too crazy. Sometimes they'll adjust by being too tight. Keep your ears open. Keep your eyes open and pay attention to what your opponents are indicating that they are very likely to do. Because that's going to really, really, really adjust your strategy. I'm sure whenever I was 4-betting all in against Phil Ivey, if you just ran those through an ICM calculator, I was probably torching thousands of dollars over and over and over in ICM world if Phil Ivey was playing the ICM strategy. But he wasn't, because literally 4 times in a row I opened and he 3-bet me. I don't know what he had. It wasn't on TV yet. But I bet he didn't have a whole lot because he just folded every time, right? And that's important. That's important, right? Phil Ivey must have wanted to win. Well, no. I mean, look, exploitatively, if... Look. Pause. I have the same read that Phil Ivey has against most people in spots like this. Like on the final table of World Series of Poker tournaments, people want to make the final table. Why? Because that's a cool thing. They care about a trinket, a note on their resume that says they have a World Series final table or something like that. And if people think that, and I have a stack to push them around, I'm going to do it. Right? I mean, that's what I should do. That's just common sense. That's just good poker. And as a player pool exploit, right? Most people in most tournaments, especially if they don't normally play that big or on that stage, they are going to be scared. They're going to want to try to make the final table, especially if you are feared like Phil Ivey. People just don't rip it in Phil Ivey's face 4-bet all in 4 times in a row. They just don't do it, right? I mean, people don't do it to me either. They just don't do it to good players or respected players, right? Not that I'm anywhere near as good as Phil Ivey, but they kind of want to have it. I was actually just reading a post on an internet forum about a hand someone played against Jonathan Little. They did not know who I was, but apparently they Googled me once someone was talking about it. And they're like, oh, I better not mess with that guy. And like, that's how some people think. They don't want to mess around with the pros. And to be fair, you shouldn't. But at the same time, you shouldn't like cower in fear and not play a pot against them. By the way, I got some new pads on my wall. The other ones were falling off. Let me know if the sound's okay today. Hopefully it does. Nothing should have changed, really. Now they're black and red. It's probably so nerdy. Isn't this nerdy? Look at this nerdy setup. Nerdy, huh? Anyway, I think it's cute because it matches my keyboard. My computer is black and red, so I'm like, let's get black and red on the wall. Distracted. I woke up in the middle of the night and did that. I had to rub paint off the walls, and now I have blisters on my thumbs from rubbing the paints off the wall. I think I might be crazy. It's cool to make a World Series final table. Plus, the money is life-changing too. Well, let's consider that. Why is it cool? It's only cool because someone told you it is cool. The World Series of Poker has done a masterful job of marketing. Whenever I first started playing poker, back in 2006, live, at Bellagio, they would have 500 or 1,000 person poker tournaments there at the exact same time that the World Series of Poker tournaments were happening. But they did not market them well, and they effectively died. I actually won a tournament there almost every single year. But nobody cares. Look, I'll show you. I have a gold bracelet from Bellagio right here. A gold bracelet from 2009 from Bellagio. Actual gold, probably worth $5,000 or something. I have a bunch of other Bellagio trophies somewhere in the storage closet. But nobody cares. I won a 500 or 1,000 person tournament, whatever it was, and nobody cares. So why do people care about the World Series, but not random tournaments at Bellagio? Why did the ones in Bellagio become obscure and irrelevant, but the ones at the World Series people care about? It's all marketing. Once you realize all of this stuff is marketing at the end of the day, you stop caring about it so much. I used to chase a 3rd World Poker Tour title because only one person had 3. But then I realized, after a while, especially after they lowered the buy-ins from $10,000 to $3,500, you're not making much money traveling to these things. I mean, if you play 10K worth of buy-ins, because you re-enter some, maybe you make 30% per time. You're making $3,500 over the course of a week. $3,500 over the course of the week is okay, but it's certainly not great, right? Thinking about return on investment. And does anybody really care? Does anybody actually care if Jonathan Little is the one with 3? Plus, someone's going to just pass me at some point in the future anyway, because that's how records go. The answer is no. No one cares. So only you care, or maybe your friends care. But you have to ask, why do you care about that? It doesn't like better your life in any way, really. Whereas winning money can better your life in some way because you can send your kids to college or buy a nicer house or whatever, right? And I guess what I'm saying here is that I made the mistake of chasing clout for quite a while. And there's a saying, you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. And the idea that I'm going to literally travel around the world playing medium stakes tournaments with 500 people or 1,000 people where there's going to be a lot of variance, so you're not actually even going to win all that often, doesn't make logical sense. And if you're trying to be a professional at anything, you probably want to have a healthy dose of logic. So anyway, people ask, like, why do you not grind out the whole World Series summer? Because I don't want to sit there and play $1,500 buy-in tournaments all day. I mean, I was actually telling my wife this yesterday because I'm going out for 3 weeks, which is like the longest trip of the year. If I had to cut out a tournament series that I play, it would be the World Series. That's like the least valuable tournament series I play because there's not a tournament every day. So I'm just like sitting around doing nothing. Or I have to play $1,000 buy-in live tournaments where you're going to make, what, $250, $300, $500 in a day. Again, which is fine, but not worth me getting up and leaving my family and going away for a long time. And certainly I do other things. I hang out with people. I do business meetings. I record online content, et cetera, et cetera. So I try to make good use of my time out there. But it just doesn't make logical sense. And I strongly, strongly, strongly recommend you look at the things that you do and ask, does this make logical sense for me? I have a poker student who really, really, really wants to get a World Series circuit ring. So he tries to go play circuit events because he wants a circuit ring. Why does he want a circuit ring? Because 2 of the guys in his home game have one, and he thinks they're terrible. And he wants to have a circuit ring too. And again, why? Why? Ask yourself why. And to be fair, maybe it's worth the price of going to play random tournaments where you're not going to make much money because you have to pay. They're only $300 buy-in tournaments, right? I guess all I'm saying is be logical about what you do. You all are going off in the comments. Shout out to Jeremy Chan, Poker Coaching member, for winning over $100,000 in one day playing online tournaments. Good job, good work. Galen, 30K over the last 2 weeks. Good job, good work. Will the Tournament Masterclass give you the tools to defeat the pros? It will certainly make you as good as them. Probably better than a lot of them. Lucas won 35K last week too. Left his stable and joined Poker Coaching. Good job, good work. Why do you care about making a final table? Because it can only happen once. So funny enough, I actually thought that whenever I final tabled my first WPT. I'll show you these things I used to give you. I have a few of these down here. Ugh, look at this dirty old thing. Can I get it out of the case? They used to give you silver card protectors when you final tabled the tournament. This is from the Foxwoods one that I just showed you. You can't see that. It says Foxwoods on it. Anyway, I have 4 of these sitting over there. And they would give you this if you final tabled, which is cute. And so I final tabled Poker Stars Caribbean Adventure, busted in 5th place. And I thought, well, that is it. I will probably never, ever final table one of these again. Because the year before that, I got completely crapped on in live tournaments. I thought I was playing okay. I was probably playing poorly. I was playing sit-and-go strategy in multi-table tournaments. That's not going to work. And I thought, well, this was my one shot, and I took 5th place, and that's that. And I'm probably going to continue running like I had been running. Not even saying poorly, but running like I had been running. I thought that was normal. And I was kind of bummed. I thought it was going to be the only time I'd ever final table, and I was probably overly excited. I thought everyone was going to try to bluff me, which was actually accurate. And that was that, right? I thought I was done, or at least done for a while. And then I turned around and won every tournament for the next 2 years. Oh, the good old days, right? But don't have it in your mind you're only going to run hot once. I mean, yeah, you're not going to make that many final tables in 1,000-person tournaments, but that doesn't mean you should squander the opportunity. Shout out to Vince. Everyone's winning. He won the Thursday Throwdown for 5K. Good job. Good job, everyone. We have a study session coming up sometime today, or maybe not today. We have a poker coaching webinar actually happening in 30 minutes. Make sure you check that out at PokerCoaching.com. Make sure you get in the Discord too in the study sessions. Louis Fleet runs amazing study sessions in the PokerCoaching.com Discord. We have a gigantic Discord where people are working hard to improve their skills, so make sure you check it out. All right, so mistake number 1 is ignoring ICM. Mistake number 2 is ignoring your opponent's tendencies and the fact that they ignore ICM. Mistake number 3 is chopping the prize pool. Now look, I'm going to present this from the point of view of I care about winning poker and getting good at poker. I want to win at poker and get good at poker. A lot of people don't play poker for that reason. See point number 2. A lot of people do not play poker to win as much money as possible. And I don't even care about winning as much money as possible today. I care about winning as much money as possible in the long run. So, how do you win as much money as possible in the long run? Well, you get experience and you get really good at playing in high pressure situations. So, I do not recommend you chop the prize pool ever unless you're getting a really good deal, because you're chopping, but you are giving away experience. Both players are giving away short-handed, high-pressure experience in exchange for lower variance. And personally, I want that experience. I need as much of that experience as I can possibly get because you just don't get it all that often. And look, I've played more final tables than almost anyone because I played a ton of online poker and I played a ton of sit and goes. And that's important to realize that even I'm trying to get more and more experience. All those Poker Go tournaments that I won, we didn't even entertain a chop. Maybe they thought I was worse than them. Maybe I know for a fact I'm running by this. I'm not even trying to offer a deal, and I don't want to insult my opponent by offering a deal that's obviously terrible for them. Maybe they would have taken it, but probably not. I think it's very important to get skills. Really good. Ignore once. Also, as you move up, if your opponent thinks you lack experience, they will not even entertain a chop unless you give them a really good deal. Why? Because they expect to they expect to play better than you do in this scenario. Look, I've studied heads up a ton. I've played a lot of heads up. I have done decently well in heads up scenarios when I have had to play them in multi-table tournaments. And I'm not going to chop with pretty much anyone unless I think they are a good, strong, world-class player, or unless they're going to pay me. I'll give you some examples of times where I have chopped. One time I was against Nick Petrangelo heads up. This was before Nick Petrangelo was crushing all the games. But I knew he was a good player, right? We got heads up in a $5,000 turbo tournament. We both had about the same amount of chips, and it was like 1:30 a.m. And we both had to play the main event the next day at noon. We both like to be on time. So we agreed to run one hand, all in, flip it. Well, the winner gets the trophy, and we chop the money. I think that's probably okay because I value sleep. If I need the sleep for something the next day. If I didn't have a tournament the next day, I would not have made this deal. And to be fair, he probably wouldn't have either, because I think we think along the same lines to some extent. He wants to get experience. And so we chopped. Is this on? You're not hearing anything. Gosh, I hope you can hear this. If y'all can hear this, click the like and subscribe button down below. Click the notification bell. Another time that I chopped, I was heads up against JC Tran. This is the year JC Tran was making a run for Player of the Year. We were at Bellagio, funny enough. JC Tran wanted to win, because if he got the win on the sheet, it gave him extra Player of the Year points. So he had 2/3 of the chips. I had 1/3 of the chips. Let's pretend there was a, I don't know, $200,000 prize for us to take. So he owned let's say pretend it's 100,000, make life easy. He owned 66,000. I owned 33,000. Okay. But of that 100,000, or let's just make it easy. There was a $25,000 buy-in seat awarded to first place on top. And I should own 1/3 of it, and he owns 2/3 of it, right? But he presented, hey, let's chop that seat 50-50. Let's get out the calculator. So I was supposed to own 33% of this. Supposed to own this much, $8,250. But he wanted to give me $1,250, or $12,500. There we go. Minus $12,500. So JC Tran hottest player on the tournament circuit, wants to give me $4,250 to chop with him. Maybe he thinks he's bad at heads up, but probably not. He had been player of the year previously. He's good at poker, right? So if a good poker player is trying to pay me $4,250 to make a deal with him, I probably should. GPI point scamming. Well, this is before GPI even existed. This is the card player of the year back in the day. Redad says, you'd like to say that you love me. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. So a good poker player wants to pay me $4,250 to make a deal with him. Sure, right? Sign me up. Another time I chopped. We were playing four-handed at the Beau Rivage. I had 7 big blinds. 2 other people had 15 big blinds. And the other player had 60 big blinds. Okay. See, tarnished silver. This is what happens if you don't take care of your silver. He wanted to win a bracelet that looks like this. I already have one of these. Got lots of little bracelets, but again, nobody cares. It's not the World Series. Nobody cares. The diamonds still shine, though. Isn't that cute? Man, that's a dirty bracelet. It's not even dirty. It's just tarnished. Anyway, this guy really wanted this. Look at these. How are these shiny? Are these like stainless steel or something? Another tournament series. Lots of bracelets. Here's another one. Stayed shiny. Lots of bracelets. Anyway. The guy with 60 big blinds really wanted to get the trophy and the win. They gave a cute trophy. I don't know where that trophy go. I guess it's in storage too. There's a trophy they gave as well, plus that silver bracelet is well tarnished. Okay. Here is what he proposed to us. He says, why don't we chop the money 4 ways evenly? 25, 25, 25, 25. And you guys give me the trophy and the bracelet. I'm like, yes. One of the other guys with 15 big blinds was like, yes. And then one of the other guys with 15 big blinds was like, wait a minute. I have way more than Jonathan. I want more than him. And I'm like, no. You own, what do you have, like 1/6 or 1/5 of the money, something like that? 1/6 of the money? And he's giving you a 1/4. Don't complain. And you know what happened? I said no. The guy said, well, then no, I'm just going to play. And the other guy with 15 big blinds said, I'll give you a little bit extra. Because, I don't know, I guess he wanted a deal. So the guy with 60 big blinds got 25%. One guy with 15 got, let's say, 28%. I got 25%. And another guy with 15 got like 22%. Whatever. I'll just sit here and collect it. Anyway, all I'm trying to say here is you need to make deals that are very obviously highly advantageous for you. Oh, there was another time. I chopped the Sunday Million. Four ways, the Sunday Million online a long time ago. I was already a good sit-and-go player against one good player and 2 players nobody knew. And I was last in chips, and I said I want as much as third place should get. And the chip leader gave me an extra $10,000 in equity, or cash, not equity, $10,000 in cash to make the deal, because I guess the chip leader really wanted a deal. And I got paid $10,000 to make a deal in a $200 buy-in tournament. That was good as well. What if heads up is a hyper tournament and the blinds are high? It's basically a flip every hand. It's not basically a flip every hand. There's a lot of skill heads up, and I can guarantee you most people play heads up very poorly. Especially today with a big blind ante, because you should do a lot of limping, and you should not be doing as much shoving as a lot of people think. Check out PokerCoaching.com. Check out the GTO preflop charts. You will see that most people play very poorly heads up today. And yeah, you got to play this high-ish variance, but if you put me heads up with 10 big blinds against a player who I think folds a little bit too often, I don't know how often I win, but it's probably going to be like 58% of the time or something. Like a lot. And that's good. You should do a jewelry trophy video. Got a lot of stuff back here. There's also stuff down here. We have another shelf. I have a whole storage unit full of stuff. I have stuff in Vegas too. Multiple trophies in Vegas. Cool stuff. Just stuff, though. It's just stuff. You can look up any poker player's record, by the way, at search Global Poker Index or Hendon Mob. I felt I did not realize this, but whenever I was playing heads up on the Poker Go Cup, they put my heads up record versus my opponent's heads up record. My opponent, good player, Justin Zaki. He played mostly big field tournaments. He won 2 and lost 4 heads up. Again, lots of variance, and he's a good player. Not taking anything away from him. And then they put up mine, and it was like, I don't even know what it was. It was like 25 wins, 12 losses or something. And then one of the commentators was like, so who do you want? Because they had both equal stacks. And the guy's like, John, obviously. he's winning 2/3 of his heads up matches. I mean, Vincent says it pretty accurately here. No one wants to study heads up for some reason because they think they're never going to have to play it. I highly recommend every single tournament player play some heads up online sit and goes. Like $5 buy-in games. If you can beat $5 buy-in heads up sit and goes for any amount, you're going to be better than almost everyone you get heads up against. Or at least you're going to be okay. You know what I mean? You're not going to be terrible, right? And you certainly don't want to get heads up and be terrible. It's very, very bad to get heads up and be terrible because I promise you, even though you may think it's all flipping, you're all in every hand. No, you're not. And you're going to get crushed. You know what I want to do? I want to go to, if I can make this work. Come on, computer. PokerCoaching.com. I want to look at some heads up charts real quick, just to show you all. Go to Poker Coaching, Tools, GTO Charts. Oh, look, there's David Peters. High Stakes Secrets. You all know David Peters, one of the biggest winners in tournament poker. Why is the site going slowly? Every time you stream, by the way, your internet goes really slow. All right, let's look up heads up with the 1 big blind ante. Can you all see this? Let's get this on the screen. All right. Let's say we have 10 big blinds. If my computer will function properly. Don't embarrass me. Don't be unresponsive. Here we go. All right, 10 big blinds, small blind. Here's our strategy. There we go. All these hands in green limp in 10 big blinds deep in the small blind with a big blind ante. A lot of people screw up and they use the shove or fold strategy. We actually have these tools available. Let's see if I can get this thing to function. And if you play in this way, you're gonna lose a lot of money. Let me show you. If you use push fold only, don't use push fold only. Don't use push fold only. Let's say we are, this is not gonna be exactly accurate, but let's say we are in the small blind. Do we have down to 2 players? Oh, we do. Good. Let's say we have 10 big blinds. Here is what you can do if you push or fold. You get to play 72% of hands profitably. If you limp, you get to play 92.5% of hands profitably. Would you rather play 92% of hands profitably or 72% of hands profitably? Well, obviously, you'd rather play as many hands as you possibly can profitably, right? And so this is your strategy. Let's take a look at 15 big blinds deep on the small blind. Notice now you shove almost nothing. You do limping with almost your entire range. And again, someone said, heads up, you only have 15 big blinds. It's just flipping. But no, it's not. Look at this. You're almost never all in. You're only shoving 16% of the time. So you have 20% of hands. In this scenario, now we do a lot of min raising, not a lot of shoving. But again, limping, 80% of hands. If you do shove or fold only 20 big blinds deep, don't do that. Look, you can only play about half of the hands, 54% of hands if you can only shove or fold. But that's not your only option. If you're using shove or fold charts, you are torching your money in a lot of scenarios. You need to be playing at least somewhat close to GTO, and GTO allows you to min raise or to limp. By the way, let's take a look at big blind versus a limp from small blind. Notice here, 20 big blinds deep. You're also not all in very often. I mean, some, but not a lot. You're doing some raising with the best hand, some raising with some junk, and a whole lot of checking, right? 15 big blinds deep. Similar thing, slightly wider, a little bit more shoves. Still lots of checking, though, and lots of small raises. 10 big blinds deep. Now, we're going to be shoving way more, but we still have a lot of checks, right? And a lot of small raises with some good hands and some junkers. Anyway, all this is to say, if you think that it is shove or fold only when you get shallow stacked, you're not going to make it if your opponents play well. And that's the final point here. As you move up, If your opponents think you lack experience or think you're not good for some reason, they're not going to chop with you. What happens to a lot of people is they play small and medium stakes tournaments, and every time they get to the final table, everyone wants to chop 5, 6, 7-handed. Why? Because they're scared. They want to lock up a win. I never really understood the idea of going to the casino to gamble and not want to gamble. It's kind of counterintuitive. I don't really understand. I think we need to get experience. It's mandatory. It is vital. And you got to realize that if you're playing, let's say, a $100 buy-in tournament, and the difference between first and second is $3,000, you're playing a $3,000 heads-up match to get a lot of experience. And you probably only own half of it, so you're not losing equity, right? And if you are losing equity, say you lose $25 out of the $3,000 on average because you're not quite as good at heads-up as your opponent, you're going to get way more than $25 worth of experience in this scenario. I actually wrote an article about chopping the prize pool. Google Jonathan Little lets not make a deal. That should bring up an article about chopping and essentially says don't do it. That's it for today. Those are 3 mistakes to avoid. Yeah, you should not ignore ICM. You should care about money. It's important to care about money. By the way, I didn't mention this, but there's this idea of future game where you sometimes should ignore ICM. ICM mainly cares about this exact hand. There's a program called ICMizer that talks about future game, and essentially, if you win this pot now, what happens later? I think you should be a little bit more risk averse than ICM, or a little bit more risk heavy than ICM recommends in a lot of spots, because let's say everybody has 20 big blinds, except for the chip leader who has 30, and you have 15. Well, being that 15 big blind stack with everybody else having 20 and the chip leader having 30 is not good. But if you can double up from anyone, now all of a sudden you are chip leader or tied for the chip leader, and you can start running people over, and hopefully that will give you a whole lot more equity later. So it's not only about ICM. I should probably say here instead, ignoring payout implications. So that's worth noting. Also, a lot of people ignore their opponent's tendencies. That's a blunder. It's a blunder to ignore your opponent's tendencies because some people are way too tight and some people are way too crazy. And if you do not adjust accordingly, you're going to torch your money. And finally, chopping the prize pool. Long story short, don't do it unless they're going to pay you a lot of money. World Series does not allow chops. Worth noting, if the players have to facilitate it themselves on the side, be careful who you make a deal with. There are a lot of shady people. If the casino does not facilitate a chop, unless I know the person, I'm not making a deal with them. And there are some people who I would, I would just not make a deal with. I wouldn't do anything with money with some people. It's tough because you don't know who you can't trust a lot of the time. So be careful of that. That's it for today. There are a lot of people going 30 big blinds pre-flop. You should tighten up a little bit. Yes, if your opponent's raising humongous, they're risking a lot to win a little. You can just sit around and play only the nuts. Life's easy whenever your opponents want to risk a ton of money to win nothing. If there are no blinds, you should play way tighter. And when the blinds are essentially irrelevant because your opponents are playing for huge amounts, just play tight. Easy game. Good luck in your games. Have fun. Make the most of your opportunities. If you're a poker coaching member, get in the webinar. We have a fun cash game hand lined up. We're going to be discussing that in about 10 minutes at PokerCoaching.com. If you're not a member, you have 10 minutes to get in. I think the Father's Day sale might still be happening. Check it out, PokerCoaching.com/Father's Day. Maybe that exists, maybe it doesn't. Will I be at the World Series? I will. I go to Vegas literally tomorrow. Yeah, do not chop with men win. Exactly. Good luck in your games. Have fun. Thank you all for being here. If you enjoyed the video, click the like and subscribe button. If you enjoy my work, if you enjoy the videos here, do me a favor. Tell one of your friends. Why do so many pros max late reg? A tournament director / pro, Kenny Hollert, put out an article a while back. And a lot of people already knew this, but he put out an article clearly showing how if you max late register, because a lot of people have busted already and you're kind of close to getting in the money, you will profit something like 10% return on investment right off the top if you break even. If you are a break-even player. And a lot of the best players, what they do is they study shallow stack spots a lot. So they know how to play 30 big blinds and shorter really, 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 really well, to the point they're not going to mess up all that much. And to be fair, that's where a lot of money is played for, right? Like if I had to tell someone to go study tournament poker, I would say, if you have 20 hours only to study, play small stakes. Or I'm sorry, play shallow stack. Learn to play shallow stack, right? So anyway, they buy in late. They expect to have 10% ROI off the top because they're kind of close to getting in the money. They're probably going to make money because they're better than everybody else playing 20 or 30 big blinds deep. So now they're making 15%, and they only have to play 2 or 3 hours on average. So if they're playing a $5,000 buy-in tournament and they expect to make $750 and it costs them, or takes them 2 hours on average, because usually you're just going to bust. Well, now they're making $375 an hour to show up, late reg, and blast their money in. Pretty good hourly rate. Especially true to start playing higher and higher and higher. There's some pros, call them quote-unquote pros. They are pros, not to demean their skills, who only play 20 big blinds and shorter for the most part. They only max late reg, which is kind of interesting to see. You see a line of these pros show up at midnight or whatever to max late reg, and they do, and they get in there, and they shoot in their equity, and that's their job for the day. They play 40 minutes, and then they're gone. But you know what? I mean, again, they turn a small profit, and they're happy to do that. It's even easier to do online. You can just max late reg with 8 big blinds or whatever, and if you can beat the rake, at least, it's a pretty easy spot because you don't have to leave your house. Seems a little crazy to get up and drive to the casino and wait in line and register and all that stuff. But that's that. Good luck in your games. Have fun. Make the most of your opportunities. Thanks again for being here. Tell one of your friends about this channel. Please. If you're in Vegas, make sure you say hi. I'll be there from tomorrow till the end of the World Series. Good luck. Have fun. I hope you all run super duper 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 hot. I'll talk to all of you next time.